Good morning, dear students of class 12. Welcome to the English online learning class. Today, we are going to take up part 2 of the lesson, the third level by Jack Finney. As told in the first session, the lesson is a science fiction. And we have already seen videos based on the overview of the lesson. We are now doing the text portion of this. So, the lesson begins with Charlie, who is the main protagonist of this lesson, the story. He is sharing his experience with the readers. And it begins with this statement that the presidents of the New York Central and New York, New Haven, Hartford railroads, they maintain very strongly that there are only two levels at the station. But Charlie has been to the third level of the Grand Central Station. Now, he shared this experience of his with his psychiatrist friend, among other people, other friends also. But the interpretation that was given by his psychiatrist friend was that it was a waking dream wish fulfillment. And the reason was that he was not happy. This was taken as a personal comment on their married life, which made his wife kind of mad, unhappy. But then he explained further that the modern world is full of insecurities, fear, wars, worry. And Charlie needed an escape. But then Charlie refutes this. He says that not me, but other people also want to escape from the real world, from the problems of the real world. But they don't venture into the third level at the Grand Central Station. The Charlie psychiatrist friend and other friends, they also agreed to this. But then they claimed that Charlie's habit of stamp collection was a kind of temporary refuge from reality, which he again refutes by saying that his grandfather also had this hobby. But those days were peaceful, without stress. So why he needed a medium for escape? And then even great leaders like President Roosevelt, he also used to collect stamps as a hobby. But he was not an escapist. Now, he wants to share with the reader the experience in detail. He says that one night, last summer, he had worked late at the office, and as he was in a hurry to reach home, he took the subway from the Grand Central. He decided to take instead of taking the bus because he wanted to reach earlier to join his wife. And he was on his way. Very ordinary person he is, an ordinary guy. And he's 31 years old, Charlie. He was wearing a gabardine suit, a straw hat with a fancy belt, and he was walking along a dozen men who looked like him. He was not unusual. And he was also not trying to escape from anything. He was trying to be with his wife as soon as possible. I turned into Grand Central from Vanderbilt Avenue and went down the steps to the first level, where you take their trains like the 20th century. So he took that route and you reach the first level where usually trains are taken. But then he went to the second level. He took another flight of stairs from where suburban trains they leave. But then he ducked into an arched doorway, heading for the subway. And there he got lost. That's easy to do. I've been in and out of the Grand Centrals hundreds of times, but I'm always bumping into new doorways and stairs and corridors. So this is not the first experience. Earlier also, I've got confused, I got lost on the way, and this has happened earlier also with me. Once I got into a tunnel about a mile long and came out in the lobby of a Roosevelt hotel. So once he got lost, and then he found himself into the lobby of the Roosevelt hotel. Another time, he came up in an office building on 46th Street, 3 blocks away. Sometimes I think Grand Central is growing like a tree, pushing out no new corridors and staircases like roots. So Grand Central is always seeing its growth. It is on a growing phase, expansionist phase. There's probably a long tunnel that nobody knows about, feeling its way under the city right now, on its way to Times Square and maybe another to Central Park. So it's on its expansionist phase. So every time, it is every day, you find some new tunnels leading to new places. And maybe because for so many people through the years, Grand Central had been an exit, a way of escape. Maybe that's how the tunnel I got into, but I never told my psychiatrist friend about that idea. But then he says, taking readers into confidence, this is what I'm sharing with you only. I'm not even shared this with my psychiatrist friend. So, to conclude this paragraph, Charlie wants to tell his readers that earlier also he had got lost on the way and he found himself in different places. And then he says the Grand Central Station is a kind of place which is growing every day. It's on its expansionist phase. The corridor I was in began angling left and slanting downwards, and I thought that was wrong. But I kept on walking. So he found that the corridor was angling left and slanting downwards. This gave him realization that he was probably wrong. He had got lost. But then he kept on walking. All I could hear was the empty sound of my footsteps. I didn't pass a soul. Suddenly he found himself all alone. He could hear his own footsteps. There was nobody around. Then I heard that sort of hollow roar ahead. That means open space and people talking. Then suddenly he heard a kind of hollow roar, and which could give him an idea that there was an open space and could hear people talking. The tunnel turned sharp left. I went down a short flight of steps and came out on the third level of the Grand Central Station. So he had finally come to the third level at the Grand Central Station. This was his experience, which he is sharing with the readers and which nobody was ready to believe, not even his psychiatrist friend, and even the heads of the Grand Central Station. They also maintained the claim that there were only 2 levels at the station. But just a moment I thought I was back on the second level. For a second he thought that he had come to the second level. But I saw the rooms were smaller. There was difference. The rooms were smaller. There were few ticket windows and train gates. And even the information booth in the center was wood and old looking. This was not in the second level. So the structure, the arrangement looked different. It was not like the second level. So had he reached the third level? And the man in the booth wore a green eye shade and long black sleeve protectors. The lights were dim and sort of flickering. They were not stable, they were flickering. Then I saw why. Why the lights were flickering? Because they were open flame gas lights. There were brass spit-ons on the floor. Even the spit-ons on the floor were of brass. And across the station a glint of light caught my eye. And he saw from a distance a man was pulling a gold watch from his vest pocket, which was very old-fashioned. He snapped open the cover, glanced at his watch, and frowned. He wore a derby hat, a black four-button suit with tiny lapels, and he had big black handlebar mustache. Even the sense of dressing was old-fashioned, was different. Then I looked around and saw that everyone in the station was dressed like 1890 something. I never saw so many beards, sideburns, fancy mustaches in my life. So even the hairstyling was different. The fashion was old-fashioned of the 1890s. A woman walked in through the train gate. She wore a dress with leg of mutton sleeves and skirts to the top of her high-buttoned shoes. Back of her, out on the tracks, I caught a glimpse of a locomotive. A very small Currier and Eaves locomotive with a funnel-shaped stack, and then I. So seeing the arrangement of the station, which did not look like the second level, he thought that he had reached the different level of the station, probably the third level, because there were only two levels till now. So had he come to the third level? And then he saw the people who were dressed in an old-fashioned manner. Their hairstyling were old-fashioned of the 1890s. And then he saw a locomotive. He had a glimpse of the locomotive, which was a small Currier and Eaves locomotive. It had a funnel-shaped stack, which was no more to be found now. And then I knew. To make sure, I walked over to the newsboy and glanced at the stack of the paper at his feet. The newsboy was selling papers. It was the World, and the World hasn't been published for years. So the newspaper that was being sold, the World, had stopped publishing for years. And now he could see it. The lead story said something about President Cleveland. I found that front page since in the public library files, and it was printed June 11, 1894. Even the newspaper was dated June 11, 1894. And the leading story the newspaper the World carried was about President Cleveland. I turned toward the ticket window, knowing that here on the third level at the Grand Central, I could buy tickets that would take Louisa and me anywhere in the United States we wanted to go in the year 1894. And I wanted 2 tickets to Galesburg, Illinois. He wasted no time in deciding that he should take 2 tickets, one for himself and one for his wife, so that they could go back to the United States of the year 1894, to Galesburg, Illinois, where he always wanted to go. And with this intention, he proceeded towards the ticket window. We are going to stop here and we'll continue the remaining in the next class. Thank you till now and have a nice day. Take care.